Day after the NBA trade deadline, and it is time to look at some NBA buyout targets for the Miami Heat. I am Nic Rohloff. This is the Heat Report by Chat Sports, and the Heat do have an interesting decision to make on if they are going to add anyone to this roster. We know that over the past 2 seasons, they have been in the buyout market quite a bit. They've added Kevin Love 2 years ago. Last year, they signed DeLon Wright in the buyout market and Patty Mills. So track record shows they will probably sign someone eventually, and we're going to have 5 of my top targets on today's episode. And I'll let you know this right now. If the Heat do sign anyone in the buyout market, we will be making a video for it. So make sure you stay subscribed. Just like we drop videos for every trade Miami made, we go live as well at the channel for some games. We'll be live later tonight for Heat Nets, so make sure you join us for that. If the Heat make a roster move, we'll have you covered. And speaking of that roster that could have some movement to it, let's take a look at where the Heat stand after the trade deadline. They actually have a max 15 standard contract. So if Miami wanted to sign someone in the buyout market, they'd have to cut someone. But you see the starting lineup that I have labeled on screen. It does sound like Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, and Kyle Anderson are going to try to make their Heat debut on Monday against the Celtics. So same old lineup for tonight's game against the Brooklyn Nets if you're watching on Friday. But this is what the starting lineup would look like in my opinion, with Jovic, Jaquez, Rozier, Highsmith, and Davion Mitchell as your first 5 off the bench, and then Burks, Kyle Anderson, Kashad Johnson, Paul Larson, and Kevin Love kind of rounding out 10 through 15. And I mentioned where they stand, but when you look at that loaded roster, they came into the deadline with 14 players. They sent out 2. They acquired 3. They have to cut someone if they want to sign someone in the buyout market. And I don't know if they will do that. There's a chance they go no one on the buyout market, if we're going to be honest. But I do think there is a clear-cut need on this roster still in terms of a true point guard to handle the ball and potentially help take some playmaking responsibilities away from Tyler Hero. And I'm not saying that you are going to usually find a player on the buyout market that is able to make that instant impact, but we've seen Kevin Love play big minutes for the Heat after being a signing in the buyout market. Last year with DeLon Wright, Patty Mills as well. So I'm not going to rule it out, and if the right person is available on the market, I could absolutely see the Heat releasing someone, maybe like a Kashad Johnson, maybe like an Alec Burks, and signing a true point guard. But we'll start with some other targets here. The 5th target on my list is Cam Reddish, and at the time of filming this, it is not confirmed nor denied if these guys will be bought out, but there is a lot of speculation that they could be a buyout candidate. So these are the guys that I have my eyes on the most. And I simply just will always put Cam Reddish on this list. He was traded in that blockbuster deal. I think it was involved with the Hornets one with Mark Williams, where Reddish connect and picks went to Charlotte. We'll see if Reddish sticks there. 6'8" wing, obviously a top 14 pick in the draft in 2019, the same year as Tyler Hero. We know what Cam Reddish is. He has not been able to get PT. I simply won't be able to quit him. When you watch Cam Reddish play basketball, you think you're watching Paul George. Well, that is when you watch his highlights. And then you watch his games, and you're like, well, how is this guy not working? The thing that's interesting with me is the talent's always there. The shot form to me is good enough to where the Heat can work with it. I don't know if it's a motivation issue where he doesn't want to put in the work to become good. I don't know what has made Cam Reddish fail. But I am always going to take a chance if I can buy low on a talent like Cam Reddish. And if you believe in your developmental system and you believe in your coaching staff, which has been so good over the past decade plus, then why not try to get a guy like Reddish and his talent for the cheap? I'll never quit him. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. If Reddish is on the market and he's bought out, I would be intrigued in signing him. Same could be said about another former Laker, Jalen Hood-Schifino. And if you watched our video yesterday about news after the deadline, you would know that I am a big fan of Hood-Schifino. He was the 17th overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. He was actually my top target for the Heat going into that draft, where they ultimately took Jaime Jaquez Jr. at pick 18. I would have rather had Hood-Schifino if he was on the board, but the Lakers took him 1 pick before Miami at 17 overall. And it's kind of wild that he is going to get bought out. Unlike Cam Reddish, we know Hood-Schifino's bought out. Andy Larson, who covers the Jazz, already said he is going to be waived. Schifino, the second year removed from being a first-round pick, already waived from the Jazz after getting traded away from the Lakers. I just will always love him. I had him as the 13th overall prospect in the NBA draft when I did my scouting. 6'4", 6'5", 6'10" wingspan. He's got great length, versatility. I like his shot form. And like everything I said with Cam Reddish about your coaching staff, your developmental system, why not take the chance on Hood Schifino? Seriously, if you can't get a veteran guard to help your team now, why wouldn't you take the long-term value play of potentially signing a Reddish, signing a Hood Schifino, see if you can reform them and have them reach their talent to become an NBA rotation-level player instead of a guy like Alec Burks? I love Alec Burks. I think he should play more. But if you're not going to play him, why not move off of him? They're not going to buy out Kyle Anderson because of how large his contract and how lengthy it is for another year. But a guy that's on a vet min like Burks, I mean, maybe the Heat do that. I mean, I'm not ruling it out of the possibilities here. But we have three more not trade targets. Used to saying trade targets. Buyout targets to talk about here. Who is your top buyout target for the Miami Heat that you're hoping does get bought out and then ultimately lands in Miami as we get past this NBA trade deadline? Let me know who your guy is down below. Someone that I thought Miami could have actually traded for at the deadline, but did not, Tre Jones. Now, this is an intriguing name here because he was a part of that three-team deal that included De'Aaron Fox going to San Antonio, Zach LaVine heading to Sacramento, Tre Jones, Zach Collins, and Kevin Huerter got rerouted to the Bulls. And the player in Tre Jones probably should not be bought out considering he is under 25, 26 years old and he's had success in the NBA. But the Bulls have 1 million point guards. Like, seriously, you run down their roster, Lonzo Ball, Kobe White, Ayu Dosunmu, I forget some of the other, Javon Carter. Like, is Tre Jones going to get into that rotation, get into that lineup? I'm not so sure he is. And the reason why I believe he may be bought out, other than what the Bulls already have on their roster, he is a 1-year, $9 million guy in terms of his contract. So it wouldn't be like Tre Jones has to accept a buyout for next year and pass up money. He's going to be a free agent this upcoming offseason regardless. He has been a starting guard in the past for San Antonio, averaged 6 assists per game over the last 2 seasons, got kind of pushed out of the rotation to a certain degree by Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, signing and a draft pick by San Antonio this past offseason. But if Jones is ultimately bought out by Chicago, I love his playmaking ability, little undersized, but so is Davion Mitchell. Maybe you don't want 2 undersized guards. Tre is a really good playmaker and a passer, but he's not a good three-point shooter. But if he's on the buyout market, I am intrigued. And before we get to my top 2 buyout targets for the Miami Heat, I got to give some love to our sponsor on today's show, and that is Prize Picks. I play Prize Picks on a daily basis. You can play football, basketball, hockey. Baseball is sneaky around the corner, professional and collegiate. Make sure you get in on the action and take advantage of the free entry Prize Picks is offering for the big game on Sunday. More than half a passing yard for Patrick Mahomes. Pair that up with any other stat projection, get it right, and you can win real cash. And if you do hit and get a win, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Easy, quick, safe withdrawals on Prize Picks. It is very user-friendly. Join me and the millions of others on Prize Picks right now. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. And make sure you also take advantage of some of their specials every week. Every Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, 25% discounts on some players. But one more time, take advantage. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. When you download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS. That link's in the description and comments of today's video. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, number 2 on my buyout targets list that I'm looking for is Bruce Brown. He was traded from Toronto to New Orleans in the Brandon Ingram trade, and maybe the Pelicans want to hold on to Bruce Brown, but there is a lot of chatter of Brown potentially being a buyout candidate. He's on a 1-year, $22, $23 million deal, so it could make sense if New Orleans doesn't want to keep him on the roster and they want to go a little bit younger in that regard. This is someone who 3 years ago helped the Denver Nuggets take down the Miami Heat in the 2023 NBA Finals. Like, he was a key contributor for them off the bench, and he actually killed Miami. And he signed a 1+1 year deal with the Indiana Pacers in free agency. It was a team option, got traded, and it was picked up by Toronto, and he stayed there and then ultimately traded again. This is someone that Miami likes. Now, do I like the fit of Bruce Brown in Miami? I'm a little bit skeptical of it. Now, I do like him a lot more in the buyout market rather than being a trade return for Jimmy Butler. It was heavily rumored that Miami could potentially do a 3-team deal with Golden State where Wiggins got rerouted to the Raptors and then Bruce Brown headed to Miami as an expiring. I'm glad Miami ultimately got Andrew Wiggins because I would have hated Bruce Brown as the full return. But the Heat have liked him. They've been linked to him in the past in free agency, in the trade market, in the buyout market. So if Bruce Brown is bought out by the New Orleans Pelicans, I would expect the Miami Heat to go full pursuit to get Brown. If Bruce Brown gets bought out, I would expect the Heat to cut someone on their roster immediately and do everything in their power to get Bruce back to the 305 where he played his college ball. He was a Miami Hurricane. I don't know what he would do for Miami. To me, he's very similar to Jaime Jaquez Jr., just a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit of a better ball handler, slightly, maybe. But, man, I know the Heat really like him, and that's why he's number 2 on my list. Plus, he is better than the other 3 names we have mentioned. But he is not my number 1 target. That would be Marcus Smart, who shockingly got traded. I don't know. There was a lot of buzz that he was going to get dealt before the deadline yesterday. It didn't happen until about, 8 minutes before the deadline was supposed to pass at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Smart is now with the Washington Wizards. It's unclear if they are going to buy him out. He has 2 years left on his deal, and you'll have to see if Smart wants to get bought out. Would the Wizards buy him out? Probably. They have a lot of young, talented guards like Jordan Poole, like Bub Carrington. They brought in Chris Middleton. They have Malcolm Brogdon still. And I didn't put Brogdon on this list. Would have been my number 1 buyout target, but it was reported that they definitely will not buy him out. They like the idea of him pairing up with Middleton and some of these young players in Washington. But Smart really doesn't fit with that group. So I could see him getting bought out by Washington, but he has to agree to it. That's the concern here. Because Marcus Smart, if he agrees to a buyout, would be a free agent, obviously, and would be available to be signed now, but he would also probably be a free agent this upcoming offseason. Does Marcus Smart prioritize wanting to be on a winning basketball team, like the Miami Heat, or a different player and group out there, or would he want to stay and make sure he's guaranteed $20 million next season because he has another year left at $20 million. So it will be intriguing to see if Smart ultimately gets bought out. And the reason why Miami might be at the front runner for him or Bruce Brown, because remember, if you are in the first apron or second apron of the luxury tax, you cannot sign a buyout player that was making more than the mid-level, $12.4 million, before getting bought out. So now that the fact that Miami got underneath the first apron with all these moves and is still in the luxury tax, but underneath the first apron for the first time in a while, the Heat are eligible to sign any person in the buyout market, which gives them a leg up over some of these other contenders like the Phoenix Suns, the Boston Celtics, the Warriors, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I actually think the Warriors might have got underneath one of their aprons, so maybe they're not included in that list. But either way, the Heat will have free realm to any guy who gets bought out. We'll see if the Heat ultimately target any of the guys on our list. I also know people are going to comment Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons is probably going to be a Clipper, and his agent's Bernie Lee, same agent as Jimmy Butler. Don't think they are going to work together here on this one. But if you had to pick a guard to sign in the buyout market, assuming they are bought out, it's very likely these 2 guys don't even hit free agency and remain with the Pelicans and Wizards respectively. But if they were both available, which one would you rather sign? MS for Marcus Smart, BB for Bruce Brown. Well, I had Marcus Smart number 1 on my list for a reason. I think he's a better fit. He can ball handle. He can defend. He's not having the best season, but he's got playoff pedigree. He fits better next to Tyler Hero if you have to play him in that lineup or start him. If you would bring him into a starting role, it's very interesting. But either way, we'll have you covered on anything Miami does in the buyout market. Subscribe today, join the channel, and we'll be live later tonight for Nets Heat. So make sure you hit that sub button and join us for that watch party.